in Matthew, the 21st chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus said to the people, "Listen to another parable. There was a landowner who planted a vineyard, put a fence around it, dug a wine press in it, and built a watchtower. Then he leased it to tenants and went to another country. When the harvest time had come, he sent his slaves to the tenants to collect his produce. But the tenants seized his slaves and beat one, killed another, and stoned another. Again he sent other slaves more than the first, and they treated them in the same way. Finally he sent his son to them, saying, 'They will respect my son.' But when the tenants saw the son, they said to themselves, 'This is the heir. Come, let us kill him and get his inheritance.' So they seized him, threw him out of the vineyard, and killed him. Now when the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those tenants?" And they said to him, "He will put those wretches to a miserable death, and lease the vineyard to other tenants, who will give him the produce at the harvest time." Jesus said to them, "Have you never read in the Scriptures, 'The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This was the Lord's doing, and it is amazing in our eyes. Therefore I tell you, the kingdom of God will be taken from you and given to a people that produces the fruits of the kingdom. The one who falls on this stone will be broken to pieces, and it will crush anyone on whom it falls." When the chief priests and the Pharisees heard his parables, they realized that he was speaking about them. They wanted to arrest him, but they feared the crowds, because they regarded him as a prophet. This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. Again, Jesus is teaching in parables, and we have to remember that this all happens, the past few readings, this reading and even next week's reading, happens in that week between Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday. So Jesus knows what is going to happen. And so Jesus is trying to do everything possible to help these people know that salvation is possible. But they have to change their ways. They have to understand that God is not this vengeful God, but rather God is a loving and forgiving God. That the ways that the Pharisees and the scribes and the chief priests have turned the people away from God is not what God had intended. That God would rather have us seek justice than vengeance. That he would rather see us do good than do harm. That he would rather have us love even our enemies than to seek retribution. And so God, of course, from the beginning of time, if we look back to the time of Moses, and from that time forward, God sent his prophets into the world. And as Jesus tells in his parable, just like the tenants, every time that the owner would send his slaves to collect what was due to him, they would beat them, they would stone them, they would kill them, they would spat upon them, they would do all sorts of unthinkable things to them. And that's exactly what happened to most of the prophets. That God had spoken through his prophets, and even then, even in the ancient days, the people just didn't want to listen. I want us to think about that for a minute, because the time that transpired between Moses and Isaiah, and from Isaiah to Jesus, wasn't just centuries, it was thousands of years. And even to the time of Isaiah to Jesus was at least 400 years. All of that time, God was saying, "Turn to me. Listen to the people that I've sent to you. Know that I love you. Listen to them. They will guide you in my ways." That God was willing to forgive and forgive and forgive and forgive. And finally, as we hear in Isaiah, God says, there will come a time. There will come a time that I will trample on this vineyard, that I will take this land that I have given you, that everything that I gave you, that when I called you my chosen people and I chose you from all others, that will come to an end. Because you do not listen to my word. You do not hear the people that I've sent to you. That one day all of this will be taken from you, and it will be given to others, because they will be faithful. And so when Jesus tells this parable, he is saying, you've stoned the prophets, you've got rid of all the people that God has sent, and now God has sent his Son into the world. And still, you choose not to listen. And for those of you who don't listen, God is going to fulfill his promise. To those who don't listen, he is going to take from them all that he's given. To those who do listen, they will find their blessing. They will live as God's people. Even up until that time, even until the time of Jesus coming and dying on that cross, even knowing that he had to do that, he was still reaching out his open hand to those Pharisees and scribes and all who would not listen. That God's love and mercy is so great that he reached through the centuries seeking his people to be faithful. And yet, there were many hard hearts and hard minds. You see, they had made up the rules, and they liked things just the way they were, and they didn't want to hear God's word because they knew they would have to change their ways. And they liked the way they had made things. I always remember that Mel Brooks movie, that infamous line, "It's good to be the king." Well, they believe that. They enjoy being in power. Because when you're in power, you make the rules. And if you make the rules, well, who are they going to favor? But if they actually follow God's word, they will realize that the least will be first and the first will be least. And they would have to change their ways and their thoughts, their actions and their words. And they just didn't want to do it. And so Jesus came. He showed us how to live. He showed us how to love. He showed us how to have mercy even on our enemies. And he said this is how God had always intended. This was the kingdom that God had planted so long ago. This was the hope and the dream that God had for his beloved creation. That you would know the love of God. That you would walk with God. You would know and hear his voice. And you would obey that voice. And in that obedience, you would bear the greatest fruit that could ever be. And yet we all know what had happened. I mentioned yesterday that I was privileged to conduct a wedding in Trinity, and it was quite a good wedding. It was standing room only. You always wish a Sunday morning could be that way. The hardest thing we had to worry about was figuring out where we were going to park all the cars. But before the wedding, because I'm always there early, and because there are so many people, I had so many people who had never been in the church before. When they came to church, they were looking at everything. And a group of people came over and said, "I love the stained glass windows." Someone else said, "I love the woodwork that you have around you." And another one looked up and said, "I can't keep my eyes off these wood ceilings you have here. They're gorgeous." And they said, "From the seat you have up there, what is your most favorite part of the church?" I said, "The people." Because that's what the church is. But it's not just the people that come here every Sunday. I'm very thankful for those people that do worship with us. But I'm even more thankful for those people who come on Sunday, but then on Monday they go out into the world and they carry that faith with them. They do all these things that need to be done. That yes, many, many times We have Sally who comes forward and says, look, people are hurting in this world. People need socks. They need sweatshirts. They need blankets. These are the people that society has cast off. And yes, if we saw them on the street, we may avoid them. But they are people no less, and they matter to God, so they matter to us. And we have an opportunity to help them out. And you people respond. We had a rummage sale. Even though I had to be at Trinity to do a wedding, you guys, on your own, just as you've done for so many years, probably more years than I've even been alive, you raise money for those you will never meet, but you provide food. You make it possible for people to eat when they might not be able to. You see, you hear God's word, and yes, there are times that you think that, oh, what can I do? Well, the good news is you do it. You don't even think about it most of the time. If there's an opportunity to provide it, you do it. But even in your daily lives, you do it, and sometimes don't even realize it. That you bear good fruit each and every time you recognize someone coming down the street, even if they don't recognize you, and you take the time to say hello. When Rich takes his team into a prison, and they do want to share this good news of God, and yes, sometimes it seems like those prisoners may be paying lip service, but as Rich has told us many times before, when they hear about all the people who are praying for them, these big, strong, tough guys especially, with the tattoos and the scars and the hard lives and the hard hearts, break down. And they finally feel love they've never felt before. That is you. That is people doing ministry. And if you've ever looked at Rich's schedule, they book prayer time all the way through the night. He reminds me that I have the 4 a.m. shift. I'm awake. Why not? But those are the things that we are called to do in the world. That is where we bear that good fruit. That is where God looks at his vineyard and said, finally. And that's what God calls us to do. That is what he called his people Israel to do for all of those centuries that they just kept fighting against him. They kept rebelling. They kept saying no. And I'm thankful that I belong to faith communities that say yes. That say, yes, God, I am here. I am here not just to only hear your word and pay you lip service 1 hour on a Sunday, but I am here the rest of the week too. Whether it's in this building, whether it's in my home, whether it's in my neighborhood, whether it's at work, whether it's at play, I am here. And God, wherever you need me, let me be there. And more importantly, God, whatever you need me to do, let me do it. Trusting that you will guide me. Trusting you will give me everything that I need to do what you want me to do. In essence, you are saying, God, as you have blessed me, let me then be a blessing to others. Now, that doesn't mean we have to pull out our wallet every day and start shoveling money out, because I don't know about you, but my wallet's embarrassingly empty. That's on purpose. But it means opening ourselves up. Opening ourselves up to others. Letting them know that you care. Because as once someone told me that when someone sees how much you care, then they will care how much you know. That by the way you treat them, the way that you open your hearts and your lives to others, that's how much they will open themselves to hear what you have to say. And to want to know what it is that you know, and why it is that you live your life as you live it. And we are simply doing as Christ commanded us to do. To go and bear good fruit in his name. To take the time to say those few words to people. And I know you've heard me say it time and time again, but each and every visit once a month to the neurosurgeon. We get a blessing from the parking attendant. It makes my day. It makes that visit to that doctor an incredibly good one. Just by him handing me my ticket back after I've paid for it, and he said, "Have a blessed day." He is ministering to God's people. He's ministering to people he doesn't even know. But he just does it because he can and because he chooses to. Just as you minister to so many other people and probably don't even realize it yourselves. You know, each and every time I visit someone, especially in our congregation, or someone who may not even be connected to our congregation, but our congregation has heard about, one of the first things they always say to me is, "I cannot believe how many people have sent me cards." Do you know how much that means? To people who are not used to having contact with others, to people who are sick and may not have a lot of family, those cards that you write out, those little letters that you send to them, they are the lifeline that you have thrown to them. That is ministry. That is bearing good fruit. That is showing others that they are loved. And the important thing is they are loved by God and they are loved by total strangers. You see, that's what Jesus was trying to tell these Pharisees and these scribes. It's not about knowing about God, but it is knowing God himself. That you people say that you know God, that you know everything there is to know about God, but God is standing right in front of you and you don't recognize him. Think about that. That each and every day, God may be standing right in front of us. And someone who may be homeless, or someone who may be hungry, or someone who's in prison, or someone who's in the hospital, or who's shut in. God may be in that person. Would we recognize him? How would we treat him? Would we throw him out? Would we ignore him? Would we spit upon him? Would we just turn away? Or would we love him just as he is, where he is? You see, that is the vineyard that God planted, and that is the vineyard that God charges us with to nurture, so that it will bear good fruit, so that God's love and mercy and grace will be known not just by the people that are here each and every Sunday, but by the people we encounter every day of our lives. And Jesus told the Pharisees that there will come a time that if we don't bear that good fruit, well, then that vineyard might just be taken from us. And that is why I'm very blessed to stand in front of you all. Because on those days when things get a little hectic, when I'm running behind schedule, which is pretty much normal, when I'm awake throughout the night, whether I'm in a hospital room, an ICU, or a knock comes at the door, I can think about all the things that you do. And I know that as imperfect as we are, we still get it right once in a while. And for that, I'm grateful. For that, I thank you. For that, there will be things that, there will be good fruit that blooms that we may never see, but thanks be to God, you at least nurtured what was planted. You once gave hope to someone who had no hope. You chose to love when you could have looked the other way. You're just doing what God did and continues to ask us to do
each and every day.